sins in the church is the best of all. Okay, so, oh, you know what? Grab your hymnals. We're just going to verse 2.
How are we doing that now?
We're going to do it right now. Grab your hymnals, turn to page 554 in the hymnal. The big fat one. And we are going to sing verses 1 and 4 while y'all stand up. You guys stand up. Because you know, if I'm facing the front, I can't really hear you. But when I'm facing you, I can hear you. And please rise as you are able. Say verses 1 and 4.
What's the number again?
4, 5, 4.
Thank you.
4, 5, 4. In our hymnal, not the other hymnal.
There's only 3 verses.
4, 5, 4. Oh, 4, 5. I know. Dyslexia is a terrible affliction. I understand. 4, 5, 4. We're going to sing verses 1 and 4, and then you'll understand exactly why I do what I do. Go, Sue. You need to mute my mic. Thank you.
I love to tell a story of unseen things above, of Jesus and of glory, of Jesus and of love. I love to tell a story because I know 'tis true. It satisfies my longings as nothing else can do. I love to tell the story, will be my leading glory, to tell the old story of Jesus and of love. I love to tell a story for those who know it best. Sing hungry and thirsting to hear it like the rest. And when we sing of glory, I sing a new song. Will be the old story that I have loved so long. I love to tell the story, will be my leading glory, to tell the old story of Jesus and of love.
Amen, and thank you, church. So that's why I do what I do. Does that answer any questions you might have about that part? So I picked these 2 passages specifically. A, to show off that, yes, I did go to seminary. More about that later. But B, to talk about this idea specifically in Jeremiah and in this text in Luke, which says you already know what you're supposed to do. Right? I mean, that's what they said. You already know what you're supposed to do. Right? So, who needs a pastor?
Yeah, I do. We do.
Okay, so here's so first I'm going to show off, and then we're going to go back to this. Now, I prepped other people before, so please understand this. I don't believe in preaching unless I'm really just like hot about something. Okay? Otherwise, it's important for me to hear what other people have to say. Some of you have been doing this Christian thing a lot longer than I have. Right? I mean, I was raised over Catholic, so that's iffy right there. And then I attended the United Methodist Church for a long time, also iffy. But because on any given Sunday, you may have more insights about what's going on than I do, and your insights may be more valuable than mine are. Some Sundays, really, I have nothing. And other Sundays, I'm like, I'm good, right? But there are things that we can learn from each other, and because you don't have a Sunday school, like a study group right now, this is one way to get to do that. Because everything else is good and well, but if you're not growing in your faith, then you're not doing the work that's laid out for us, I think, right? And this is one way for me to grow in mind. People ask the pastor during the interview process, well, how do you get fed? Well, I let the people in the congregation speak to me on Sunday. What a concept. Which takes practice, I realize, so I'm going to ask you to just indulge me this morning. Okay, so the Luke text, you ready? The Luke text. Does it show up in the other Gospels? Yes, no, maybe?
Probably not.
Don't know. I don't know.
Don't know. Okay. Yes, it does. It shows up in Mark and in Matthew. Not in John, right? Because John's off doing his own thing. John was written about 90 AD, or 90, what we call AD. And John's just doing his own thing. But Matthew, Mark, and Luke, a lot of the stories are the same, right? Except Matthew, okay, so Mark comes first, right? The Gospel of Mark was written first. Then Matthew and Luke looked at his stuff. Not that they plagiarized it, but they looked at his stuff and they wrote their versions. Okay? So Mark's kind of the template. Matthew is writing for Jews. Okay, that's his audience. He's trying to convince Jewish people that Jesus is the Messiah, so you see a lot of that kind of stuff in his writing. Luke is writing for us. He's writing for Gentiles. In Mark and Matthew, the magic words, what's known as the Shema in Judaism, is said by Jesus. Jesus says those magic words. In Luke, who said them? The lawyer said them. Right? Jesus turned the question back on him and said, what's the law? The lawyer was probably a Gentile, but he knew the law. Right? So it's not the province of any given set of people or a chosen people or whomever. Everybody knows what the rule is. So the implication there is that we know what we're supposed to do. It's not really that hard. Well, I mean, it's hard, but it's simple, right? So I grabbed this just to make sure I said it correctly, because there's 3 versions of this. So the Jeremiah text and the Luke text comes from directions from God to the Jewish people in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 6, starts in verse 4. It's called the Shema, which means listen, right? So there's a band called Original Jewish Gangsters, and yes, it's hip-hop. It's Hebrew hip-hop, and it's a blast. And that's where I learned this. I didn't learn this in seminary, I learned it because I have a friend who's Jewish, and the CD really rocks. And in Hebrew, it's Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Right? So the word Adonai is familiar to you, yeah? Right? Thank you, Amy Grant. Right? But it means, hear, O Israel. Shema means hear, right? Listen. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. Right? That's Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad means. The Lord is our God, the Lord alone. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. Right? Deuteronomy. Right? So all the way back in the beginning, that's been the rule. Do you know that every faith tradition in the entire world has a version of that? They have a version of that love your neighbor as yourself thing. Everybody's got one. Everybody's got, they say it differently. Wiccans say harm ye none. Right? That's their version. Everybody's got one. So what's the problem with the world? Nobody's doing it, right? I mean, that's the problem. Nobody's doing it. It's not that hard, is it? Right? Until the devil gets involved, amen. That's not something you hear in a Lutheran church, by the way. I'm attending a Lutheran church right now. They never say that word. I don't know, there's some wrong, but it couldn't be that. So what's wrong? We're selfish. What else is wrong with us? Lazy.
How about afraid?
Afraid. Gold star, girl. Right? We're afraid. We're self-centered. Right? We're that's my lane. on Telegraph, thank you very much, move over. Experience a little Detroit road rage.
Welcome home.
Remember, my lovely wife always says to me, why do you drive like that? Because I'm from Detroit, that's why. I'm not actually from Detroit, but close enough. So what happens? And what does that have to do with this?
Guidance.
Guidance?
Somebody reels back in.
So maybe reels back in. Is that by having a pastor?
Help make your faith strong.
Yeah. So some spiritual growth, like you'll find out that that's like one of my things. I think that's important. I think that we don't know as much as we think we know. And that God is way bigger than we think God is. And that sometimes God pops up in really odd and surprising ways. Okay, so I'll tell you this. Just take this with a grain of salt. I believe you can't be a Christian by yourself.
Amen.
Right? Jesus was a Jew, correct? Jews can't be Jews unless they're in community. What's a Jew on a desert island? Some person on a desert island. You can only be Jewish in community. Right? That's how they're set up. That's the whole thing. Jesus was a Jew, so for him to understand this, what they call solitary practitioner stuff, that's what the term they use for it, outside of Jesus' view, that's not right community. Otherwise, Jesus could have wandered around by himself for 3 years and hung out with a bunch of scraggly people following behind him who were dirty, hadn't bathed in God knows how long, had little to no food, and just whatever. Right? But he did it in community. So why do you have community? Growth? Strength?
Accountability.
Oh! Accountability. That's one of my favorite words about church. I think church serves two purposes. It holds us accountable to the things that we know we're supposed to be doing, but we're not, but we do it in a very nice way because we're gentle with each other. And sometimes we let each other slide, but eventually, if it's not us, it's going to be somebody else who holds us accountable. I say better here. And the other one is about strength, right? It's about supporting each other when times are tough, right? And frankly, you can get that second part anywhere. You can. You can get it at work. You can get it, in your family. Oh my goodness gracious, excuse me. You can get it in a support group of some sort, right? If you're working steps or whatever, right? Like, you get accountability in that second group, by the way. There's a lot of heads going, right? Because part of it, it's a twofold process being a Christian, right? It's a twofold process. How you do things in your regular life. But that means, of course, you have to be honest with each other. I mean, really honest with each other, right? On an intimate level, you have to be honest with each other in church. That goes against everything that mainline Protestants were taught to do. Right? It is. It's against everything that, well, I wasn't raised that way, so I don't know. Because I was raised to go in a booth with a little sliding thing and just pour my heart out to some guy behind the screen wearing a dress. Right? That's what he was wearing. He was wearing a dress, pretty much. It's full of 39 buttons. Right? But that was the gig. That was what we did. And you could say whatever you needed to say to that person who would then give you some penance to do. But then you'd just be back next week confessing the same sins, particularly if you're a 16-year-old lesbian. And then, right? But there was an outlet for that. There was a place for that. I don't know what Protestants did coming up in the day. Right? We had communal penance, right? The minister would stand up and be like, oh, we're really sorry we screwed up this week. The pastor would say, you're forgiven. And if you were really cool at church, you would say, you're forgiven back to the minister, because that's very 70s, right? About the time people realized, ooh, pastors needed to be forgiven as well, right?
Right.
And then you just move on. I would suggest to you that spiritual direction of some sort about the shortcomings in our lives is really important. To really bare your soul and talk about those things that are keeping you from who God is calling you to be. not who you want to be, but who God is calling you to be, is an important part of the job. Right? But that's part of what pastors do. And to me, it's one of the more integral parts of what we do, because we live in a culture that lets stuff slide all the time. You have road rage. Well, that's because other people are morons on the highway. No, Gail, it's because you just can't relax and not be anal retentive about being on time and getting someplace, right? Because somebody who knows you will call you on your stuff, right?
Right.
Whether that's relationships, or it's your relationship to the community at large, or whatever that is, that's part of the gig. Part of the gig is not to be Sunday entertainment, by the way. That's not how I roll, as the kids say. That's, I'm not, somebody's going to stand up every Sunday for 15 minutes and tell you stuff you already know, and then just expect that you're going to do it. That's not me. Just not. What I want to hear from you is, this is how my week went. These are the things that went well in the context of whatever we're doing for worship. So, for example, on this matter of doing what I'm supposed to be doing as a Christian, I had a great week because I'm unemployed. I quit my job a couple weeks ago. All right? So if I limit my interactions with other people, I have a great week. Right? I'm not listening to people in emails and chats 40 hours a week telling me how bad my company sucks. Right? That's a lot of stress. Right? But if you're working, if you have a high-stress job, if you're not a high-stress person, right, that gets to you. Good God, if you're raising children, A, thank you for that, or grandbabies, thank you for that, for saving the rest of us from it. And B, there are probably things that went wrong last week. Yeah? Parents? Grandparents? Did things go wrong last week?
Yeah. Lots.
Lots, thank you. Lots went wrong, right? So the question is, how'd your Christianity go last week then? Your relationship to your children, to your grandbabies?
Tested.
like fire, right? Fire and gold, right? You come out better on the other side of some weeks, and other weeks not so much, right? Do you have support for that, right? Do you have a Christian understanding of what that means? Right? That's part of the job, right? The other part of the job, I think, is to be in some ways the public face of the congregation. Okay? How's that sound? Does that fit under what the pastor does for you? Public face. In my case, it would be a short person doing it. I'm not as commanding, perhaps, as at least stature-wise. Once I get rolling, yes. But at first look, you're like, maybe not so much, right? But here's the thing, a pastor can't be a public face of the congregation unless the congregation backs the pastor.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So, now, unless it's a matter of conscience, how do you feel about that? Unless it's a matter of conscience.
You're standing up anyway.
Right? So, for example, we'll just pick on the Catholics, no offense to all of us who are in recovery. Once Catholic, always Catholic, sorry, it's a thing, right? If I'm a Catholic priest, and my party line in my Catholic church is not to expose pedophiles, right? And if I feel called, I'm going to take a stand. Okay, for example, the Lutheran church I attend right now, God bless their souls, which cannot sing on key. They can't. You have no idea what a thrill it is for me to stand in the church and sing with my people and people who can sing. Just saying. Okay, so I may just sing again. They're one of the most apathetic churches I have ever been in my life. They're older on average than the people in this church. And they're pretty sure that they've done their part and they're done. That's it. I'm pretty sure. Right? I mean, they're finished. And I know, right? Retired does not mean you're done being a Christian, by the way, just in case we're wondering. There's not an age limit or anything. And when all that stuff happened, with the kids in the kennels, and I know I go on about this, but I can't help this. Those kids in the kennels, sleeping on the floor, separated from the parents, no way to clean. Can you imagine? No way to brush your damn teeth. I mean, really, right? They did absolutely nothing. It didn't bother them. You know why?
They didn't know any better.
What?
They didn't know any better.
No, they didn't know any better than what else?
Better than.
Doesn't affect them. Doesn't matter to them. Love your neighbor as yourself.
Mm-hmm.
This was the scripture from 2 weeks ago, yeah? Did you guys do the Good Samaritan 2 weeks ago? That's the story right after this one. Because the lawyer can't put it down, right? Like, everyone? Like, yes, everyone. Including kids who don't speak English as a first language, whose parents brought them across the border illegally. Because, like, 8-year-olds have so much authority and volition of their own, right?
Right.
That we treat them worse than I treat my dog. Right? And I stood up in the church and I'm like, what are we going to do? And they just looked at me like I was out of my mind. And the pastor of the church, of course, went down with the local group of lefties and protested, right? In his clergy drag, right? And went down and stood in the corner with people and had conversations about what was going on. His congregation did not back him. They're about the most apathetic group of people I've ever met in my life. And he can't sing, so it's like lose. If you could at least sing, I would be uplifted, right? But he took a stand, right? Because his congregation wouldn't. In the face of something that's obviously, blatantly just wrong, and certainly not biblical.
Right.
What does Jesus say? Who are we supposed to take care of?
Children.
Children particularly, right?
Yeah.
Children, the widow, the poor, the homeless. That's our job, right? And part of the pastor's job is to stand up every Sunday and go, how's that working for you? What are you doing about that? Are you becoming who God is calling you to be? Because that's really, I mean, that's a lesson I got from this Lutheran church I attend. God loves you just the way you are, but too much to leave you there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
God loves you, God thinks you're amazing, unconditional love, but you're not everything you could be yet. And you won't be until you draw your last breath. And that's okay. Right? That's the gospel. The gospel is to get up and do stuff. Not just in church on Sunday. In a rather warm sanctuary. Just saying. Yeah. Too much clothing on. Right? But to do those things. And if that's the kind of pastor you want, then I'm your pastor. But if that's not what you want to do, then I'm not the right choice. Right? I say that straight up. And this really would be what you get every Sunday, by the way. Just so you know. Except I'll probably be wearing shorts, because it's warm. Right? But this is who I am, this is what I'm about. I believe the gospel takes two things. It takes that whole thing of love God and love your neighbor as yourself. I think the rest of it's kind of extraneous in a lot of ways. But this is who I am, this is what I'm about. And I think I'm done now. Is there anything you want to say back to me right here, right now? Because now's the time. No one's going to pick on you. No.
Thank you.
You welcome. All right? All right. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I've appreciated the hospitality. And I do appreciate the singing way more than you'll ever recognize. Seriously, when we were singing, I'd love to tell the story. It made the hairs on my arms stand up to be standing again in an MCC church with my family, which I haven't had the opportunity to do in quite a while. So if nothing else, thank you for your hospitality and the opportunity to worship with you. Amen.
Amen.